friends. We're black. We're black. Yes, we are. But we're also back and black and curious.
For sure.
I'm Candrin.
Deja here, of course. And this week, we are actually going to be talking about life transitions and kind of what that looks like through your relationship sphere, through your familial ties, and also like trying to make decisions about life as you know it as an adult, because adulting is hard. So
It's a mess.
Total mess. Adulting sucks. So, what you want to start with, boo? Romantic or the familial ties? How we feeling?
I don't care. What's in your spirit?
So, well, clearly my spirit has always been single. So the romantic ties is just bullshit. I've often found myself in situationships, as we know. And so like the situationships of it all is quite confusing, okay?
They can be. Situationships can be confusing. Relationships can be confusing. It can all be confusing and a mess. I read this quote that said, or maybe I heard somebody say, relationships are invasive. And I'm like, that is so accurate.
I would not know.
It's
I feel like
it can be a lot. Even I feel like situationships and like relationships, any type of, romantic relationships, the point of it is to be a part of your life in a way that's very intertwined. So they're invasive.
I mean, I agree with you on that. I think that the irony, even though I've not ever had like a serious committed relationship with ones that I would count, let's be clear.
Because there is a difference. God bless.
Hello. I think that my experience is kind of with them situationships. I may as well have been in a relationship for the invasiveness of it all that you speak about. I have had some men who have been super, super, super controlling and like had to talk to me like all the time and every day, which is why I was like, you know what, it is totally fine for us to be in a situationship where I see you when I see you, because baby, I don't think I want to go to jail. And I love my life out here on the streets frolicking. I think a lot of it for me is just like, as you know, Candrin, I am quick to just be like, you know what, no, I'm good. Like, the instant that I see some sort of like thing that I don't like, and I wouldn't even call it a red flag, because clearly I have sucked at pointing out red flags in relationships or like potential partners. And so to that end, like I have ended up dealing with things in early on dating that made me just kind of like, I don't know, I guess sometimes I feel like I'm damsel in distress, or like what was I forget the name of the podcast, but they were calling people dodo birds. And I was like, I have had a dodo bird moment a time or two.
Who amongst us has not had a dodo bird experience every now and again?
I think, but like when I say, I mean really dumb. Like,
I mean really dumb, and I have been dumb. Like completely ridiculously stupid.
But like, okay, boom. I absolutely dated someone for almost a year. We'll call him DC. And come to find out, he was married. Yes. Well, when I say dodo bird, I mean dodo bird.
Well,
I didn't know.
I've had some dodo bird situations without giving too much of my shit away. I've had some very, very dodo bird moments where I'm just doing the most. And like the thing is, I like vacillate between doing the most and doing the least, because the other side of me is like very much like nah.
Not today, Satan.
Yeah, not today, Satan.
So
But I think, the transition piece of this is like the dating in different spaces in your life and like different ages, but also different like levels of maturity, dating for different sorts of things and different things that you might want out of life, and how that like shapes things a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think that's what helps to come down from some of the like petty stuff that you're like Xing people out on. You're like, okay, but is this person like, if you're dating for, a longer time or like for longevity, it's like, okay, but is this person aligned with what I want out of life? Or is this person aligned with, yeah, like just those sort of baseline things that can kind of move you out of that space. But like, I'm a big proponent. I tell all of my like cousins and people that I know that are younger, I'm like, especially when you're in your 20s, and really, I feel like under like 33, I don't think you should be compromising on much. I really don't. I don't think you ought to start compromising until you start getting to an age where like men just have children, like, or you may start dating divorced. Then that's a whole other
Well,
dynamic
it's where
because
we are.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're in a different space, but like for my cousins and stuff, I'm like, don't put up with anything. Like, for what?
So, say more about like this non compromising stance for our 20 somethings. What does that look like for you?
It looks exactly how I did it, which is if I didn't want to be bothered, I wasn't. If I saw something I didn't like, I moved on quickly. If I saw something, trait or qualities that I thought was so, like, for instance, a prime example was like this guy that I liked him a lot, and this was in my maybe late 20s, very late 20, like 29, 30 space. Um, and we dated for a while. It wasn't a while, it wasn't a long while, but we dated for a little while. And I just noticed he was extra as hell, and I'm not extra. And I was just like, too much, can't do it. And I also noticed that he was like, he played little games of like, um, you know, like he just played games of like he had to feel like um I was doing something for his attention and that kind of stuff. So even though like this person was really good on paper and like maybe somebody you would look at and be like, and I believe he is married and like has probably a lovely family and everything. But he looks like somebody who you would want to settle down with. But if those are things that are no's for you in your 20s, I don't think you should compromise on any of those things.
Somehow or another, your friend over here missed that boat because we was compromising all types of left, right, and center, and up and
Yeah.
down, and all of that around.
Yeah. I mean, and again, and it can be small for me when you're that age. I think it can be small. I don't ascribe to much that Wendy Williams says, but like I truly believe, like, she used to say stuff like about, like 20 somethings, like when she would do her Ask Wendy's, for instance, in her audience,
Yeah.
and she would be like, the girl would be like, I'm 25 and I've been dating my boyfriend. She'd be like, it wouldn't be mine, like, or just get rid of him. Versus if somebody was in there, later on in life, she'll be like, okay, well, maybe you can work it out. I just don't think you should compromise when you're that young. I think you should be out having fun, dating lots of people, and learning a lot about yourself and what you want in
Yeah.
your relationships.
Yeah. I mean, and to that point, I totally agree with you. I think that I wasted a lot of time on people that just weren't worthy to, like have so much of my energy. But the thing that I realized in my 20s, and really and truly, let me stop playing, that I realized in my 30s was that I am like a one guy kind of girl. And like Kendra, y'all used to read me for filth, okay? Kendra is a Virgo, she don't play no games. So she used to be like, bitch, if you don't go out here and date this one, that one, and the next, and I'd be like, I don't know how to do that.
Well, the thing, and I mean, everybody doesn't, and it's not for everybody. I will be the first person to admit it's really not for everybody. But the reason why I think that's important to like date people and date volume is because you meet people and you learn things that you thought were important that weren't, that didn't end up being important, weren't, that wasn't important. And then you also find things that like, I never really thought of that, or that wasn't on my list. But I really, really like that. And that goes on your list. So it's like a trial and error. And the only way you do that is through dating. So I think you got to date a lot. I mean, you don't have to. Some people meet the one very early and they live happily ever after. But for the vast majority of us, I think you got to date a lot.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you. Like, I think many, many moons ago, we had a conversation about everybody having like the whole phase. And so, like, I absolutely still, somehow or another, being a one guy girl, still managed to have the whole phase, which is strange.
Great.
But it did, you know. I mean, you got to do that. You need to know what it's like and how, you know, what's out there, and just kind of do it to know that this is for you or it's not for you. And that's what I found out. So I sometimes wonder though, like, when, for me, because I experimented much later in life, or like well after my 20s, in that period of, you know, the oasis, as I call it. And
Well,
I
so did
sometimes,
I.
huh?
I said, so did I think.
You know what? Yeah, you might. We probably were on the same.
Yeah.
We're always parallel, as you say. So, like,
Mhm.
it's likely. I think that had I been able to do what I did in my early 30s, in my 20s, I would be somewhere else. As far as like relationship wise, maybe.
Mhm.
Because hello, that's how I ended up with dating the fucking married man. Excuse me, y'all. I forgot I'm not supposed to be cursing like that. But like, totally dated him and didn't realize that he was. I had like suspicions. Okay, story time. Why not?
Mhm. Go for it.
I met him because I was recruiting him for a friend of mine's speed dating event, and she was like a Black speed dating coordinator, and I thought this was just the dopest thing ever, so I want to help you like pull this off. And so she was like, yeah, I'm not getting, and I didn't even know her at first, to be honest. I met her in a bar. She seemed cool. I liked her energy. So I was just like, girl, what you doing? Let me help you. So you know me, Ken. I'm always like, I will walk up and talk to anybody. And especially like talking to guys, it's nothing to me because I always had a lot of male friends, like close male friends. So she was like, yeah, I'm not getting enough men for the event. And so like, we have tons of ladies, but I don't have any men for them today. And I was like, girl, give me some of them flyers. I got you. So that night I recruited like 5 or 6 men. And so she was
Nice.
like, how is it that you're able to do this in a few minutes and you don't even know me? You asked me what the event was, the date, the time, and like what the vibe was, and then you went out and sold my message. And I was like, I mean, you know, whatever. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So it was, I met her maybe a month or so before the event actually took place. And so I proceeded to like continue to get, you know, people to sign up and buy tickets and whatever have you. And so he was like one of the last people that I recruited. And so in my mind at that time, I was 34, maybe. I wasn't looking to date him. I wasn't trying to pick him up. It wasn't any of the sort. It was literally like, so red flag, I'm going to use some colorful language. Okay. So I walked up to him and he's like, he starts talking to me at the bar because I was there by myself waiting for a friend. And so, we just struck up a conversation. He seemed hella cool. So I was like, hey, are you local to the area? We have like this event happening, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, that he lived in the DMV, but he owns some properties here. So he'll come back every now and again. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, ding, he needs to be on the list. Right. So I'm like, well, we have this Black speed dating event coming up in about a month. You should join us. And so he was like hemming and hawing, and I was like, I mean, you like bitches, right? Like, what is the problem?
Shit.
I
Okay.
totally did.
Like right
Totally
there.
did. I still like, and I was talking to all the guys like in that kind of like homegirl fashion. So a lot of them I'm still kind of cool with. Like when they see me out at the, you know, the functions. So it's like, what up? That's that crazy girl. Like, yeah, that's me. So I was like, what's the problem? Like, are you single? You're available? Like, what's the story? He was like, yeah. So I was like, so you like bitches, right? He was like, yeah. I was like, okay, so then you should come to this event. It's gonna be a whole lot of beautiful women. Don't be calling them bitches, but I'm just saying, like, that got your attention, right? And he was just like, yeah. So we continue to chat and we strike up more conversation about random things. He's laughing and joking with me. And then like I was waiting for somebody, a friend of mine, to come. And so she calling me and texting me, and we were so busy talking, I missed her phone call. She about cussed me out when she got there. And I was like, I'm sorry. You know, like I'm still recruiting people, my bad. So the night comes to a close, he leaves before we do, and then I, make it on home. So I'm at home doing my usual, get ready to go to bed so I can go to work the next day or whatever. And he like sends me a text message or he calls me, one of the two. And it's just like, I really appreciated the conversation and so on and so forth. And in my mind, I'm just like, what? Like, okay, whatever. So
good for you.
Like I was just kind of like, all right, good for you. Oh, the thing that I missed, because Dodo Bird, right? So as he's leaving the bar, he says bye to my friend, but he walks up to me and like takes my hand and is like, it was really nice to meet you and talk to you and da 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 da. And like hindsight in 2020, looking back, I'm like, bitch, he liked you. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
But Deja, she just don't be knowing sometimes. Most of the time, let my friends tell it. I'm gonna be completely honest. So long story short, he continues to like text and chat and whatever. And so we ended up just striking up a friendship. So for like 6 months, well, 4 to 6 months, well, like maybe next 3 months, we were just cool, like just having conversation, texting about random stuff. Like he cooked and all kind of stuff. So we were talking about cooking and like he was baking a pie. And I was like, what? Like, what man do you know, black man, mind you, in their 30s that really be cooking like that? Like he had shown me like he made some like chicken cordon bleu and like some other like fancy whatever. And I was just like, Dodo Bird again, like, oh my God, he cooks? Like that, people have to eat, Deja. It's not that serious.
They certainly do. I mean, they don't have to eat fancy, but they do have to eat.
So eventually, like all this chatting and carrying on, I was just kind of like, okay, so because I was still in that headspace, right? So I was like, okay, so I don't need another phone buddy. Like I'm good on that. I have lots of male friends. I don't need someone to just text and talk to about random whatever. Like I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate your energy, but like this isn't going anywhere besides all this chatting. And so I'm gonna call it quits and bid you adieu. So like a month and some change, not even a month, because I feel like we had that conversation in February. And then in April, he like calls me out of the blue and asks to take me out. So we go out on this long ass 6-hour date. And so he like picks the restaurant. He tells me what I should wear, like all the like things that I'm like, oh yes. Like I feel like I sound so stupid, y'all. I assure you I'm very not stupid. But like I was so impressed because I had had a shitty run of like male interaction for the last up until that point for the last like couple of years. And so it was the effort for me that he was showing. And so like, but that was his energy the whole time.
Effort's a big thing for me. Effort is like the number one thing for me.
Listen. So we're gonna skip all the beauty of it all. Beauty, right? The glitz and glamour more like. I mean, he genuinely like, I'll give him some credit. Like he is genuinely a nice guy, or the persona of him that I got was a nice guy. Like he was genuinely caring and like brought to the table a lot of the things that I aspire to have in my relationships with someone. But like he was still very much married and on his way to divorcing, but never ever like stated any of that. And instead had like the thing now, people are aware of it now. There's this app called Signal where you can have conversations with people that it's in a locked text messaging thing. And so this was a couple years ago, mind y'all. So your girl is not that crazy anymore. But like when he was like, yeah, we should use this so that we can communicate, I immediately had like the ding, ding, ding. This is not right. But he was just like, no, like, I just, what I do for work. And so I want to protect our conversations and so on and so forth and blah, blah, blah. And like, girl, hindsight in 2020, if that was his work phone that he was on and we're using this app on the work phone, they still gonna find the shit like, hello.
Yeah.
So we stopped talking and then I started like playing Virgo detective because all my Virgos, y'all be finding shit. Okay, I love y'all. So I was like, let me put on my Virgo cap for a second and let me do some snooping around. So I did a couple of Google searches, and I had done it before, but like I never put it all together. I had found an obituary, I think of his mother or his grandmother, one of the two, and one of the names that was listed with that was his wife. No idea. Oh yes.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Here's another thing. No shade, friend. But anytime I feel like I had to do all of that, that's the instant no for me off top. Like instant no, especially for the girls in your, early 30s,
Don't
20s.
do what I did, okay, y'all?
If you got to do all of that, then there is no trust. Therefore, there is there's no need to move forward. Like,
but the thing is, I did all of
everybody at every age. I don't believe in doing all of that.
I did all of that, like finding the stuff much like well after we had stopped speaking.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like a thing of confirmation, but it's like I learned pretty early, and I'm not sure if I said this in the previous podcast that we recorded, but I'm pretty intuitive and like my instincts are very strong, and I've learned to just trust them. And if I start feeling a certain way, then I just go with it. Like, I don't need confirmation. Sometimes I get it way after the fact, but like, I don't need it. And I really learned that because I'm like, literally, I've dated people in the past, and I've like literally written in a journal. When I'm journaling, I go in and out of that practice, but when I'm journaling, like actually written out what was wrong with them and why this was not going to work out. And it was exactly that. And I should have just moved on from the day that I felt that way instead of tying myself to this person. But, you live and you learn. But that's my point, is like,
do you?
You do. I do.
Because some of us be a little slow to the train, okay?
I know. I'm not typically slow to that train. And honestly, sometimes you getting into some shit and you just be like, oh well, fuck it. Like, sorry, language. And but you take that L as it comes. Like,
I mean, listen, we know
it's like there's a mix of it. You just gotta know sometimes you're there for a good time, not a long time. And like the red flags don't really matter because you might be there for a good time and not a long time. So,
man, listen.
As long as you don't get caught up. Just don't get caught up. If that's what you're there for, just don't get caught up. That's all I'm saying.
And I have done well with that. But I think maybe I'm giving a little too much there, but like I say I've done well, but like, like the only way that I did well is because homie had 4 kids, and I think they wasn't all with the same person. So I was like,
I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing.
I'm gonna be here for the good time.
Like, I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing, but again, you got to know if that's your bag, because if it's not, like, you're gonna get yourself caught up in a bunch of stuff. So,
baby, talk about it. Okay, so I feel like we've talked enough through my dodo bird moments. Let's slide on down to the familial ties of it all.
Yeah.
And how transitioning from childhood into adulthood and what that looked like.
A lot of calibrating. Simply put. I mean, and for me, it was a lot of calibrating. It was a lot of, especially with my mom, a lot of preemptive forgiveness of like maybe this didn't go how I had hoped it would go, or something she did I didn't care for, but I realized, and I believe for the most part, that she did the best she could, and she did okay. Like, she did a good job overall. Like, I'm not, a mess for the most part. She did the best she could. She did what she knew how to do. And some of the stuff like that she didn't do, she didn't have language for. So for instance, a lot of stuff that she did is because my mom is a little bit more extroverted than I am. So she really pushed me to like do certain things, and I wasn't into it. And she kept pushing. And she just thought, like, a lot of times people just think you're funny acting. And it's like, no, I've just reached my social threshold for the day. Thank you so much. I'd like to go take a nap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and actually, that is one thing that she and we've talked about. But like, and I didn't know it either. Like, I didn't have language for it either. But like, after school, she was adamant that I came home and did my homework right away. And my body was adamant that it needed a nap.
Hello.
And if I was caught taking a nap, we had a problem. And so that it was the introversion, and it was actually not that I was trying to be disobedient. I was really trying not to. Like, I would fall asleep in my books, like making the effort to do the homework. I had just, because I'm so introverted, I had just reached my social cap for the day after being in school all day, and I needed to reset. And I still need to reset. Like, I don't take a nap every day, but I come home and I sit down and I just stare at the wall, or I maybe watch Instagram for a little bit, or I take a nap, or I close my eyes and I just think, or whatever. But I need that reset between school. And like, she just didn't know. So I had to, like, in my mind, like, make peace with the fact that she made mistakes and she's human. And
Yeah.
she's not just my parent, she's a woman. So it's like,
Yeah.
there was a lot of that. So I think,
Adulting of it all.
yeah, I think it was a combination of like forgiveness where it was necessary, but also, just calibrating, because, my mom and I actually were having a conversation yesterday of her saying, like, not yesterday, but a couple days ago, where she was like, I would like to talk to you every day, but I know you don't want to talk to me every day. And I was like, I don't do well with small talk. So I would rather have a good substantial hour, 2 hour conversation with you once or twice a week than to have a 15-minute nonsense conversation with you every day.
Mm-hmm. So to the point of your like needing a nap, I remember when I met Ken, we were with our no longer mutual friend. But like, I used to just be like, this girl fall asleep anywhere. Cause you would like come in from class and just be gone on the couch in the corner. Like, and Ken is a petite person. So she would just be like knocked out, everybody talking, clinking glasses, laughing, and she asleep. I would just be like, I don't know how you do it.
I don't fall asleep that easily anymore, but like, literally, when I need a reset, my body will just be like, all right, child, time to take a nap wherever. Like, even sometimes at work, thankfully I'm not going into office anymore, but when I was going into the office, particularly on Thursdays, because I was already on a flex schedule where we were doing 3 days a week, but everybody was there on Thursdays. So, child, I'll go in my car and take a nap. Like, this is wearing me out with all these people and all this mess. I need a nap. Like, and I would go take one for 15 minutes, reset, and be fine. But I need that reset button. And that's one of those things where, like, I think my mom just didn't know. And if she had known, she probably wouldn't have pushed me so hard in that regard. She would have respected it, but she just didn't have language for it. And neither did I. Neither did I. All I knew how to say is, I can't help it.
Yeah.
So,
The struggle bus of being a kid with a parent that is different than you. Yeah.
oh my God. Jesus. We are like so different. We have the same, it's funny because we have like the same triggers, but we respond completely differently.
Mm. Hmm.
My mom is a blow up and I'm a meltdown.
That's interesting. I
Mhm.
would feel like I don't know that. So like for me, like my mom and I are a lot alike. Where people think that we are like, I'm just reincarnated version of my mother. And so like I sound like her, I talk like her, like all the mannerisms. And what I realized a couple of months ago was that, or not even, it was last year, was that my mother sounds like my grandmother. So
Mhm.
it's like three generations of like, not, and I'm nothing like my grandmother at all, but like three generations of like the same person being reincarnated with different personalities. Like it's so
Mhm.
strange. I'm also much taller than both of them.
Mm.
Like my grandmother is like probably 5 feet tall. My mom is 5'2" and I'm 5'9". So it's just totally different. But to the point of like being different than your parents, I think my father and I are very different. But my mother and I are like, we're very similar. So we tend to like butt heads a lot because of that constant similarity. And then it's also like, I have a rebellious spirit and have since I was a child, and I don't like to be told what to do or how to do it, and still don't. And so like my mom would be like, you're gonna do da 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 da, and I would just sit there until I got my ass beat. Like, so I think that how that played out as an adult, the transitions, it was like for many years I was still my mom's little girl, and then I hit 30. And at 30, I was just kind of like, I can see the humanity in both of my parents and recognizing that you are just adulting as much as I am adulting. You've just been doing it a lot longer. And then years after that point, I came to the realization that our parents, or not just our parents, but people in general, are the sum total of whatever traumatic event that stunted them in their emotional intelligence growth.
Absolutely.
And so, like, for my family, I think, I don't know if, well, I mean, I hope they never see this, but I've had this conversation with my mom. But I think that my mom is somewhere in her late teens. And I don't know, I've never really thought about my dad in that regard because of his life experiences. I think emotionally, he is also in his teens. And then I have a sibling who also is there. And
I think it's easy to get stuck there because that's like a lot of the traumatic experiences and where you're either allowed or pushed to like grow into yourself or you're stunted at it's that point. And some of us are like my mom gave me a lot of permission to like grow into myself, but also like my mom is very, like you said with your mom, very like her way or the highway. And I was very clear that I was not going her way. So so I was like, as soon as I could, I was like, I am packing my bags and I am pumping it. And that is what I did. Like, I went away to college. I mean, I didn't go far. I wanted to go further, a lot further, but I,
not having it.
The money wasn't there. My mom would have let me go, but the money wasn't there.
Same, but also if the money had been there, she also said that it was still a no.
Oh no, my mom would have let me go if I had the money. If I had have gotten the money, like gotten scholarships and stuff, she would have let me go. She would have been, it would have been begrudgingly, but she would have let me go. Yeah. Because I feel like my mom had me young, and so she missed out on a lot of stuff. So she took delight, even though it was hard for her because I'm an only child, or her only child, or well, was her only child. It was hard for her to see me go, but she took delight in letting me go and like seeing me fly. So I think there was, a little bit of push and pull for her. But yeah, I just knew I wasn't gonna do it her way. And I was gonna leave. And I think so many people, because of circumstances, they aren't allowed to leave home, or they aren't in a position financially or educationally, or like they don't know what they're gonna do. And so they just stay. So I think it's easy to get stuck there. And probably a lot of our parents are stuck there, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that because like when having this conversation with my mom, I think she asked me, well, like, well, where are you at emotionally? And I was like, at the age that I am now, which I don't mind saying, I'm 37, I'll be 38 in 2 months, or probably less than that now. But like at the age that I am now, I feel like I'm at 35 And I say that in the sense of like, that's at the point that I became supremely self-aware. Like I think I've always been self-aware, but it was more evident at 35 that like there are certain boundaries that I need in order for me to feel comfortable, and I need to find
Definitely.
ways of like expressing them so that my boundaries are being met. And that'll be another conversation that we have later on talking about boundaries. But like I my emotional intelligence at this point is at 35 because I'm still working through the boundaries that I set in place and feeling like comfortable to assert those boundaries within my familial ties. So like I
Right.
have had probably in the last 3 years a whole lot of like emotional growth in regards to the relationships that I have with my family members, and coming to a place of like understanding still that there are deficits within their abilities to emote certain things or to communicate with me in ways that I need, and also being able to accept that. I think
Hmm.
for a long time I just was very hurt by a lot of the things that had gone on, and
Yeah.
feeling helpless to know how to communicate what my needs were or what my feelings were behind certain things. I even struggle sometimes now, especially with my mom. My dad not so much, because my dad is just very different. He's really quiet, and he's probably really quiet because like he's got two firecrackers for like wife and
Balance.
daughter. Like I'm a Leo, my mother's a Sagittarius. Both of us are fire signs, so very like like so he's just usually like I'm just here. I'm in the room. My dad
Staying
is
out of it.
yeah. Like he's very like super sweet. Will give you the shirt off of his back. My dad is super kind. So, but yeah, like I also had the conversation with my mom saying, I'm like, dad is the nice one. You are not, and that's okay. And she was like, what do you mean? I'm not nice. I'm like, Mom, you're not. It's okay. Hell, people don't think that I'm nice. But I realized that I am my mother's daughter, and that's all right.
Yeah. I
Like,
think I think definitely I know this is like all of the buzzy sort of stuff, but therapy really did help me. I feel like, and I think therapy matures you emotionally in a way that I wish our parents had access to when they were our age,
baby.
because it grows you up. Like you realize you got to make peace with some of this stuff. And like intuitively, I already kind of knew that I did, and I already started doing that before I was in therapy. But therapy really gave me the language. Ooh, sorry, therapy really gave me the language for some of the healing work that I've done, um, and being able to move past it. I haven't. I obviously I'm still in therapy, so
Praise
I
God.
haven't healed. So and so I haven't healed everything. And I think going home always like triggers certain things in me that I have to come back to my therapist, like, girl, I wasn't prepared for this. Um, and
Okay.
also
Why
just
you
in
think I don't ever want to go out?
right. I love my family, but child, it's a lot. It can be a lot. Um, and can be triggering. But also other relationships. Like I'm still part of the reason why we're here is just a feeling of like there's more that I want, and like I want to be able to do more and be more in life.
Mhm.
And that's part of why we're doing this journey, which we'll talk about at a different point. But so that part of my life is still feels very young, and I'm hoping that I can
Girl.
evolve it in the next few years. Not that I like, again, we're going to talk about this very fulsome in a very fulsome way at some point. But yeah, my career didn't go at all how I had anticipated. And so, I feel like I'm still like in that regard in my, 20s, probably mid to late 20s. So, it's there's pieces. But yeah, I think some of that stuff is just reparenting yourself and having peace with yourself and
Hmm.
all of the buzzy therapy words, setting boundaries, all of that stuff is
Yeah.
important, especially when you are moving into these familiar relationships. And some of us even turning like into caretakers or into situations where we're having to like the roles are starting to reverse where we're starting to like teach our parents stuff.
Baby.
So like that gets confused. That confused gets a little confusing also.
Listen, like I realized that because of the profession that I'm in, I'm always serving people in some sort of way, right? So like
Yeah.
in the previous episode, we talked about how Ken is a business coach and I am a life coach. And in life coaching, it's a lot of emotional intelligence usage in the sense of like life coaching is very much about direct communication and advocating for your needs and what you want and being clear about those things that you have control over and don't have control over and whatever else might fall in between. And
Mm-hmm.
so I realized that in going further into this path of like work, my how I communicate to my parents, they now are like mimicking back. It's like kids. It's so wild. Like, like when we
Yeah.
were in like, I guess like undergrad, what is it, adolescence 101 or 102 or whatever it was when we were at VCU.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked about how young kids between the ages of like I think 7 and 10, or maybe even more than that, because you start mimicking at a very, very young age. But like
Yeah.
the idea that you do what you're shown. I forget the terminology right now. It's escaping
Yeah.
me.
It's not
But
coming
like
to me either.
you what's shown to you or presented to you in your household is indoctrinated into your system as this is how I operate throughout the world.
Mm-hmm.
And or if your parents communicate a certain way, that's how you're supposed to communicate until you learn something different.
Yeah.
And I think that because I communicate so differently, like my mom, especially because my dad doesn't talk a whole lot. Like he get on the phone, he'll call me, we'll chat for a few minutes, and usually it's like 5 minutes. And he was like, all right, okay, I gotta go. I'm gonna take my nap now. My dad is 74. So he just wanted, be heard for a few minutes and just he be rambling and then off the phone he go. And I just be like, all right, talk to you later, Dad. Um, but with my mom, it's just weird. And I like to your point of like when you're like reparenting yourself, you also end up kind of like reparenting your parents a little bit. I think you just said that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm rephrasing what you said, but like this shit is odd, bro. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Like, even though I speak to this in regards to like clients that I work with, I also tell them too, like, yo, the process that you're in right now, it's gonna feel weird until it doesn't. And I seriously doubt that it's ever not gonna feel weird when your
Yeah.
parents are like speaking to you in the way in which you're speaking to them, like you now are speaking the same language. And it's just like, I never thought the day would come.
Yeah, I don't think I'm there yet, but I literally did have to like call my mom the other week because she was just being a mess. And I was like, girl, get yourself together. And she was like, oh my God, I really need to hear that. Yes, you do. Get it together. Like, like I had to call and chastise her for being a mess.
Oh my
So
God, that is funny. And not your little old mom. Can's mom is so petite also. So like I can just hear her.
because she's fussy. She's fussy and she likes things her way. When people don't do stuff the way she would do it, she gets really fussy.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. um so sliding into the transitioning from like because we kind of did this backwards a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Transitioning from undergrad into adulthood or graduate school and like what those paths were like. Um, and speaking to the 20 somethings that you mentioned earlier, I think that
I had fun. I don't know about nobody else. I had fun. Um, and you know what? I think I knew myself better then, and I've had to work back to that, getting back to that person. I would say, like, don't let life beat you down. or get disrupted with all of the chaos and what everybody else is doing. Like that is the biggest thing. I wish that I had just been as headstrong as I was then, and I just kept being so headstrong, because I feel like after I tried a few things and they didn't maybe work out exactly how I had hoped, I kind of I mean, I didn't give up completely because I kept trying, but it was just like it deflated me and
Mhm.
I shrank. And now I'm to a point where I'm like, this is not like, I woke up one day and was like, I am not small. Like, I am not this type of timid, scared,
Right.
tiny person. Like, I've never been that way. Even as a kid, I was always very, like, I may not say much, but I have presence. I've always had presence. And I felt like I got to a point in my life where I no longer had presence. And that was weird for me. So I have been working back to get to like 18 to 22-year-old Can, because I feel like she had it together. She knew, she might have been a little delusional, but she kind of had it. She kind of knew what was what.
Um, I think that the irony is that we're very opposite in that. This might be the one thing that we're opposite on.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually we're like parallel. Um, for me, I have always been in some regard, like, even though I have this huge personality and like I will talk to anybody, like the bright and shiny outside is not what's actually happening on the inside. So I've always
Mm.
been very reserved and very like, not unless I really was comfortable with you, I didn't really tell you how I felt, which is why like having boundaries was such a big deal at 35. Um, I think that I I mean, my 20s wasn't horrible, right? But it wasn't, I feel like I'm having more fun in my 30s than in my 20s. And I think that as a 20 something, I mean, I did some stuff, I did some reckless shit that we talked about in the previous, the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, I met Kendra in my 20s and, um, I I just kind of was flying by the seat of my pants, basically. And I feel like because often I was aware but aloof at the same time, I feel like that has played a role in me trying to figure out what it was that I was going to do. Like I feel like I've meandered through life for a really long time, and now it's just like, now I'm just figuring out, okay, this is it, this is what I want to do. And there are days that, even though I believe that this is my God-given talent, me being a coach and showing up for clients and holding space for them to figure out where it is that they want to be and how they want to show up in the world. um I think that had I had this notion much sooner and gone with it, right? Because we had that conversation years ago. I think I was 24. I was like, you know what? I want to be a life coach. I want to help people figure out their shit. At 24, I said this and didn't start it until what, 36, really focusing on it. Um, and deciding that this is what I was going to do. Like I would not, had I, made this decision and stuck with it at 24, I probably would not have gone into graduate school and wasted not wasted, because I got something out of it. I'm now a life coach, right? But like,
Yeah.
gone into graduate school I could have gone a different way and it been less expensive. How about that?
Same. Same.
um, I but I often am so hard on myself. So like to the point of like that Kendra and I have had conversations about how like life is, Kendra's infamous words that I tell other people is that life is gonna whip your ass enough. So why are you constantly with the whip in your hand? And I feel like you said that when we were in our 20s, which
It's
is the
true.
irony. Like probably our late 20s, but yeah. Um so yeah, like a lot of these stages in life, the thing that was missing for me was boundaries and asserting myself in the way in which I felt on the inside. I think that I have always been self-aware, but of course now at this stage I'm way more self-aware because of the work that I do and how I help other people. Um, and then it's also a reflection. Like if you can tell someone these things, then you should be able to live this way too. Well, at least I believe that for myself. But like, I just, I think that I wish that I was more, I felt brave enough. Especially like 25 and down. I definitely wish that I felt brave enough to like just be myself. Um,
Yeah. And I think like for me, I felt brave at certain points. I felt brave very early, and then I got I think law school was the turning point for me. Like you were saying, for you, it was going to grad school. I think law school similarly was that for me, where I was just like, oh God, I spent all this money. Now I have to try to fit myself into this mold of being this attorney, or like at least go use the skill since I've already spent the money.
yeah,
And I should have just like not gone. And like,
yeah,
and if even if I had gone, I should have like been more open minded about how to make all of it happen and fit together, instead of trying to take a more linear path. And that's where I think I got confused because I wasn't being true to who I actually was as a person. And I think that's why I say I think it's been a journey to get back. And I moved around and I did those things. I met fun people. Like I had fun in my 20s, and the whole discovery process for me was very fun. I think it was the law school process and that took a 3 year chunk out of my 20s,
mm,
and then was supposed to put me on a path. Long story short, I graduated in the middle of like the Great Recession. So like that, it messed up my confidence. It messed up my confidence in my ability to get jobs and get paid and like do meaningful work. It messed with me. And the projects and side stuff that I was working on, none of that came to fruition either. So I think it really messed with me and my confidence in that way. So now it's like part of the reason, again, we'll talk about this, but part of the reason why we're doing this is because we're just like F it, like we don't have to like be beholden to whatever we think we should be doing with our lives or with our degrees or with our whatever.
mm,
Like we just go have fun. Like that's part of the living too. And so I feel like at 18, 20s, in my 20s, when I lived in Atlanta for like that 1 year, like I had fun, and it was worthy. The fun was worthy.
yeah. I think that are like being, Black women in the United States and having like, African American parents, I feel like a lot of the way in which we went through, matriculated through like, school basically was because, our parents didn't have those opportunities and they thought that we needed to have it. Like it was
Absolutely.
stamped on us. And if I have children, which I don't, but if I had children, even like my niece and nephew, I am like wholeheartedly like on the train of nope, figure out what you like and what you want to do.
Yeah.
There's so many other ways to make money that don't require you going to some lofty, hugely expensive degree that you'll be paying for until you're like in your 50s.
Yeah. But again, I think, just to bring it kind of full circle, I think it's about now we're having to like recalibrate the people who are coming, behind us, of like, and also ourselves too, to a certain extent, of like, okay, this is what our parents did. This is not how I want to live, or this wasn't the right path for me, but they tried. So I'm going to do now what's right for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and some of that is tapping back into, youth and your younger self and those crazy ideas and the joy of that younger age, to me anyway.
Literally. No, I agree. Like, my tag is like joy, peace, and ease. Like that's how I want to live the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Um,
So
but yeah.
I think we kind of reached the end of this conversation. You got anything else?
No, I was gonna say we can wrap this up because life transitioning can be funny and at the same time it can be a little bit precarious, as we have
Yeah,
discussed
of
in
course.
this conversation.
I mean, it's complicated. It's not linear. A lot of it's not linear. Some of it is, you know, you got to bounce back and forth a little bit.
A whole bunch
Hmm.
of loop de loos.
Yep.
All All right, y'all. Well, thank you for joining us on this week's conversation about life transitions. Please leave us comments, subscribe, and check us out on all of the socials at Black and Curious.
Yes.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.